So one of the most misconcepted coverage in Michigan is the auto insurance. There's something called PIP, the personal injury protection, and it's kind of confusing. So let's go over the updated versions of what the personal injury protection is and the 5 different levels that you can have coverage for. The first part, let's kind of give a little bit of a background. The personal injury protection in the past has always been an unlimited package. There was no option. You had to have unlimited medical if you got injured in a car accident. Now that doesn't mean your car insurance actually paid the whole bill. They're on the hook for $300,000, and then it would go to the state of Michigan or the medical portion of that personal injury protection. It's essentially what you were paying for. And if you ever look at your bill, you notice that's the largest cost on your car insurance. $500, $600, $800 for that personal injury protection makes a big impact. One of the frustrations that we've had is some of us don't need that high of a medical, so there's different connections that they've switched over the last 1.5 to 2 years that we now have different options. Let's dive in and talk about the biggest impact. The first level is the most common that people are still sticking with is the unlimited medical. It's a good deal. Honestly, if you get injured in an accident and you're part of the 3% that actually utilize the total limits and have a ton of medical bills. It also includes something called attending care. It's just a whole package for those that want to have coverage. If you have a high deductible on your current medical insurance, or if it doesn't cover car accidents, having that unlimited medical can cover you and your family way more than you could ever imagine. Now keep in mind, that's not a common claim, so somebody to get injured to that level is fairly rare. The state of Michigan has decided that you can lower that medical. You can go down to the second level, which is the $500,000. The parts that you're losing when you give up that unlimited is now it removes the attending care. The attending care is essentially meant to protect you in case you got injured long term. You have that $500,000 coverage per person of your family that's in your home in the car accident. So that happens, the thing that you're losing is that long-term care where someone may have to take care of you, they may have to help you do the dishes, you might have to get up 5 times a night, and they've got to do some sort of medical after the fact of a surgery. We can't plan for it, but it's part of it. If we're trying to cut the costs out of the medical or we have our own that's qualified, then we have that option. There's no restrictions to go with the $500,000 PIP coverage. From there, the cost difference actually is fairly impactful because once you leave that unlimited PIP, you also lose the MCCA fee. And the MCCA fee is called the Michigan Catastrophic Claims Association. It's essentially a fee per vehicle. Commonly, we've seen it on our bill from anywhere from $80 to $150. Sometimes it's been more than that, depending on the year that they need to recoup the money for that fund. It's really one of the main portions that the medical pays into for the state of Michigan. For those of you that think that still may be more coverage than you need, you have the third option, which is the $250,000. This gets a little bit confusing when you get to this level because there's actually sub-options to this. So you have the $250,000 option, and honestly, a lot of claims are less than that, but now you're starting to decide if it's a risk that you want to take. If you get injured, same scenario, you lose the long-term care, you have all of those options kind of stripped away. It's pretty simple, $250,000 what your coverage is, but there's also now a subcategory that says with exclusions. That with exclusions allows you to exclude either yourself or family members that have qualified medical. We'll get into that in just a moment near the end of the video, so stay tuned where we explain more in depth on what the qualified healthcare or the qualified medical portion is. Those are the 3 levels that you have options for. You can't go lower than that, even though I kind of said there's 5 options. The next way to move down is you have to have Medicaid or Medicare. The Medicaid is for 8. Anyone that has medical insurance through the state of Michigan, you automatically have health coverage. So the state has kind of decided, okay, if they already have medical through the state and they're paying and the state's paying and all of that is being paid for, we don't really have to make them carry the same coverage on the auto. So now you're allowed to lower it to the next lowest level, which is $50,000. You have to show proof of the Medicaid card to submit to get that qualified, but now you have the option of doing $50,000. Anyone in your house has to have qualified medical. So if you have family members that are not on Medicaid, you're most likely not able to go to that program. If somebody has medical that'll cover car accidents, that may qualify you as well. There's a couple stipulations, like I said, we'll get into that here in just a moment. And the final level that you can get to is called Medicare opt-out, which is what it means. You can completely opt out of that medical coverage if you're on Medicare. You have to have parts A and B, and you have to have a deductible that's less than $6,000. As long as you qualify there, you're good. You can opt out completely. Keep in mind, if you want long-term care, from my experience, most medical long-term care from Medicare is going to be very expensive. So if that's a concern for you, you may want to consider sticking with the unlimited medical just because of that long-term care piece. Those are all the main packages. You've got the unlimited, the 500, the 250 with exclusions. You've got the 50,000 Medicaid, and then you've got the opt-out completely with Medicare. Price-wise, you're looking at a big difference in cost. The Medicare might knock almost the entire bill out and you just have a tiny little MCCA fee or whatever the fee is, but you're no longer paying that $500, $600 plus bill. That's why a lot of our policies have gotten cheaper, not because the policies have gone down, it's because the coverage has dropped. Just like anything else, if you lower your coverage, you're likely going to pay less. The nice part is it's not a risk factor. So when you lower your coverage, you're changing the risk. And sometimes changing the risk can make it more expensive. But when you're changing the personal injury protection, you're not really changing the risk in general. You're just changing the coverage. So those are the main options that you have, like we mentioned, but there's a couple qualifications that you have to qualify for them. The first 3 levels are set, you can get them anyway. There's a few things that are going to be required of you also to go forward with them. Let's talk about the QHC, the qualifying health care or health coverage that you have to have. What the state of Michigan has determined is everybody in the house has to have qualified health. What does that mean? It means that if you don't have the right coverage of a household member and they have access to your car, they're in the home with you, they have to have that piece. It's not very difficult. There's a couple things that they require. One, everybody in the house has to have under a $6,000 deductible. If they have above a $6,000 deductible, you're not qualified for those bottom 2 levels. In any scenario, you can pick unlimited, 500, or the 250, but you can't go below that if nobody qualifies. The second piece is if they have the $6,000 deductible, do they have their own medical coverage? Now, if they have their own car insurance, they've got their own medical coverage. If they have car insurance that coordinates, that's a separate piece that the state allows. That also qualifies as long as the deductible is less than the $6,000. Most of the time, if they coordinate, they're not going to have that high of a deductible, if at all, and so you're usually in a good situation. Let's assume that you are qualified, but somebody in the house doesn't have qualifying health care. What's your options to have? Well, you have the unlimited and the 500 and the 250. Those are available at all times. But now you can do the 250 with exclusion. So if you have some sort of health care that qualifies you, you can exclude yourself from the policy, just not the possibility of other people riding in the vehicle with you. Price-wise, it's not that major of a difference. To have the 250 with exclusion, it's going to be a lot less expensive, but clearly you're not going to get as low as doing the 50 or the complete opt-out option. The part that you have to ask yourself is it worth it? If I have a $3,000 deductible and I get into a car accident and I injure myself, let's just pretend it's a bad year. I have 2 claims where I got injured. Doesn't matter who's at fault because in Michigan, we're a no-fault state. You go get your repairs done, your medical taken care of. They go get their repairs done and their medical taken care of. Could I go after them if I have a certain coverage? Yes, there are some options. If you guys are interested in some of those protection pieces, we can go more over in depth with those either in another video or feel free to contact us through our links below. In this scenario, if you have 2 claims and you have a $3,000 deductible, you're going to pay $6,000 out of pocket. If you have a $5,000 deductible, you're going to pay $10,000 out of pocket just for those medicals up to whatever your medical limit is. Also, keep that in mind when you're shopping for insurance, whether you are going to lower it, if it's worth it to lower it based on what you're going to pay out of pocket in the event that there's a claim. I get it. We all want the cheapest insurance policy possible, but you got to remember how much is a $100,000 claim versus saving $300 a year. Yes, it's the insurance guy sales pitch that everybody gives out, but it makes sense. The reason that we pitch that is because you have to decide what's the best fit for your family. There's a little bit of confusion around some of the coverages for the people that don't have medical. What if I have a 6-year-old or a 10-year-old or someone that can't drive and purchase medical insurance? I may not have medical insurance on them, Medicaid or Medicare. So are they covered? Well, yes, even if you don't own a car, the state of Michigan automatically covers the residents up to $250,000. You actually get the lowest coverage even if you don't own a vehicle. If you own a vehicle and don't have insurance, you are required to have at least the $250,000. So you're technically now paying for something that the state's already picking up. It's kind of one of those unique situations where if they are a family member, typically they consider them blood related. Those are the people that are covered on that policy. If it's just a roommate, they have to have their own policy, own insurance to have that coverage inside of your vehicle. If they don't, once again, the state does pick up the $250,000 if they don't have car insurance or they're not covered on some sort of policy already. And that leads into the question of more in-depth on coverage. I get it, it's a little bit confusing. I'd love to answer your questions. Feel free to leave them in the comments below. I want to leave you guys with another video that might be helpful on the auto insurance side. We actually have a lot of discounts and a lot of coverages that the state of Michigan allows us to give to customers. So if you guys want to learn more about that, or if you're just shopping around, I would encourage you to click the link below, fill out a quote with us. We can go more in depth and try to help you guys out. Maybe we'll save you some money without losing the medical that you may need. In the meantime, if you want to learn more about the car insurance, here's my Insurance 101 video that will go a lot more in depth on what coverages the state of Michigan requires. What do you have to carry, what's beneficial, and what costs a lot of money for you. Go ahead and check it out. Otherwise, I'm Mark with Valor Insurance. We'll see you soon.